recently had a conversation with a friend, and this friend of mine, we had one of the best conversations ever. We've been friends for a little while now, but we've been doing a lot of asking questions, sharing each other's mind, believing the best in each other, and we could have been a lot of conversation. But we check up on each other and express concern about each other. But the fourth one, which is letting them in, was when we had this last conversation, and it was a breath of fresh air. She was able to give me some advice on some things I shared with her, and I was able to give her some advice on things she shared with me. Letting people in, it's a big thing. People we know, especially in the world we live in now. And this is the last mindset in the book, Six Conversations. My name is Aya Lawrence. Welcome to last part of this episode, and welcome to Reading with Aya. Right. So far, we've talked about three mindset. The mindset one, which is around curiosity. The mindset two, which is believing the best in each other. Right. I telling the best story about someone. Having a better interpretation, the kindest and best interpretation of someone. And the other one is expressing concern, checking in with someone. I think this is the art of the book, actually. It's the moment you care for someone, leaves your head and lands in their ears. Whereby you call them, you text them, and see how they go. But the fourth mindset is, I think, is sharing your part of yourself with that person, right? It's sharing your life practices, your life experiences, being known by the person you're trying to know, right? If by me, you start having a conversation, and I keep telling you about myself, and you're not even telling me about yourself and not letting me in, do you think I'll keep sharing? I think having a great conversation means, there is that back and forth. We're sharing, we're learning from each other, we're talking to each other, and this is the missing piece in most conversation, right? Here's the trap that very kind, very thoughtful people often fall into, right? They master curiosity. They believe the best in each other. They express concern beautifully, but the people in their lives feel deeply cared for, right? But the kindness only goes one direction. The other person is not letting the other person in. Sometimes people do it because that's who they are. That's the act of, who they are, not because they're trying to forge it. But, being able to share a part of you is part of having some of the best conversations in the world. Connection is reciprocal, right? If you're sharing, I'm sharing, that's where we start receiving some of the best conversations we can have. The audience starts sharing. I've been doing a little thing around storytelling, and I've been trying to learn a lot about storytelling. And one of the things I've been learning about storytelling is, if you want to tell a better story, tell a story about yourself, especially if you want people to really listen to you and have a conversation with you, and you can really share what you want through life, right? What sharing actually looks like, right? It's a small detail in return. Somebody tells you something, and maybe, tells you about their week, and you offer a real piece of you, a real piece of your week, not a polished update, real one. I think sometimes people always think they need to polish things up. No, you don't. Just be your authentic self and share a part of you. Hey, man, I struggled this week. This week was a hard week as well. Not because you're trying to make that person feel bad. I worked today. I struggled. I struggled in some meetings. I maybe I have a plan to, rectify the things I struggle with. You can talk about it. Also, being able to name what you're carrying. Honestly, I've had a bad month. I have a sometimes briefest sentence in the room, or this, especially if you're a salesperson. All right, I've had a bad month. My customers are not returning my calls, or things like that. And also letting people see who you love or what you love, the books, the hobby, your family, the work, the people around you, the convictions that makes you light up, your morals. you know Letting people see what you love and who you are, letting people see what you wrestle with is a big part of sharing what yourself, right? Your doubts, your worries, the prayers you have not figured out yet. Trusting the right people with the right depth at the right time. And as you know, one thing about sharing also, you got to make sure that you're not oversharing, because sometimes people feel, if I share too much, share what you're comfortable with. But share a little bit of yourself. Share what you're comfortable. Start with it, with little by little. That, my friend, I told you, even with our conversation, we start sharing little by little. And I was like, hey, I'm struggling. And then later on, as we went in depth, I was like, I'm struggling with this thing. I think you might be able to help me with it. And I asked her, and I told her, we had some of the best conversations. And she shared a part of her that I didn't even know relating to that information. And seriously, that was, we talked for a long time, and we went for, I walked her to where she needed to, where she was going, and it was one of the best conversations I've had in a long time. I think life is very hard sometimes that we don't want to share with people, because people, if they have that information, you don't know what they're going to use with it. What about if they don't? How about if they don't do anything with that information? Because sometimes we assume that people are really, really out there to hurt us, and sometimes they're not. It's just sometimes in our head. But I know it's hard. But how can you practice it? How can you practice this art of letting people in? Match depth. Do not exceed it, right? If other people shared a 5, do not respond with a 10. Respond with a 5, right? If somebody's just share a little bit out of a part of them, share a little part of yourself. If people go in as well. Offer something true, not something impressive, right? Something true about yourself, not I had a great quarter. I was honestly scared going into this quarter, but it was good. I think we ended up, being great. I was scared about this thing, or I'm as of right now, I'm going to share a little bit of myself. My daughter's going to college, and it's hard. I don't know what to do day to day, but I just keep going because, it's a little bit hard for me. And I don't know, I've never raised a kid that's gone to college before. This is my first child that's going to college. And it's really hard for me. And I'm still trying to figure out what that emotion is. Notice your defaults, right? If you tend to deflect to humor, with credentials or with logistics or name it yourself and try a different door. Like if you're just that person that always wants to go to humor, a lot of people don't like humor. If you're trying to share and you're trying to share humor, or you're trying to share about your credentials or what you've done, what you've not done, try something else. Try vulnerability. Be vulnerable a little bit. Reciprocate intentionally, right? So after someone opens up, do not just thank them. Add a sentence of your own. Just something that you can just, hey, I've been through that, and I know how it feels. Um, if you need someone to talk to, come talk to me. I can have that we can have a great conversation. Bringing the old book back together, right? It's curiosity. You decide that they're worth knowing, that people is worth knowing. You're asking questions, yes, believing the best in the other, expressing concern, about, you decide they're worth telling, not out loud that they matter, right? Sharing your life, you decide they're worth being known by too, right? And they're worth you knowing, them knowing you. My challenge for you this week is, you know, test all this for. Have a great conversation with someone. You know, uh, be curious, believe the best in that person, express concern about that person. Let them know that hey, I'm concerned about you. You've been, I know you've been going through this. Are you okay? Do you need someone to talk to? And share a little bit about yourself. Share your life. I want to challenge you this week. Look for one person. And I'm not saying start with the old 4. Maybe start with 2. Graduate next month. Express concern. The month after, share part of you. And let's see how that conversation goes. I think this book by Edda Holman The Six Conversations. I think it's a book everybody should read. It's a really great book. I love this book. And it's been helping me in the last few months to have some of the best conversations ever. Thank you for another episode of Reading with Ayo, and I'll see you in another episode. Thank you.